Okay, now we are at the foot portion of our sock. Okay, remember we are making the mate to this particular sock, and so now we're at the foot portion. We have already done the hung hem and the heel tab. We've already done the heel itself. Now we're at the foot portion. And so how do we figure out how many rounds to be able to make this foot? So what I did to figure out how many rounds to be able to make this foot is the first thing I did was I stood on a ruler. Important, you have to stand on the ruler. Don't just measure your foot from a sitting position and measure your foot. You actually have to stand on the ruler. It makes a difference. So I stood on the ruler and I found out that my foot is 8.5 inches. Yeah, I have small feet. Okay. Anyways, then I figured out that the heel portion is about 2 inches. By the way, your heel will be about 2 inches also. That doesn't change. That has to do with the needles and the back and forth thing. And the toe is also about 2 inches. Okay, so then I took my 8.5 inches and I subtracted 2 inches and 2 inches and I came back with about 4.5 inches. Okay, so this is about 4.5 inches. Now, what do I do with that information? Okay, now I had to do a gauge swatch. Ta-da, gauge swatch. And this gauge swatch here tells me how many rounds per inch I have. I took my rounds per inch and I divided that into my 4.5 inches and I figured out that I need about 55 rounds. Okay. Now I need to do my 55 rounds. And since that's going to take me just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on pause while I do my 55 rounds for my foot. I'll be right back. Okay, I am now at round 54. And I'm going to go ahead and finish out round 54. And then on round 55, I am going to stop at the front again, so that I can do the toe. Also, while you guys were on pause, I went ahead and switched my weight. If I can show you here. I switched my weight. If I can get it down there. Can I show you? Will it show you? Yes, maybe. I switched my weight. Oh, the phone is really being a bother. Okay, I knew it was going to do that. I switched the weight from being on the bottom of my bonnet to being on the buckle. Let me see if I can show you better. I'm gonna scoot it over here. There we go. Okay, see, it's no longer on the bottom of the bonnet. It's now on the buckle. So anyways, and that's because I was getting too close to the floor and I needed to adjust my weight up. And so I did that while you guys were kind of on pause. So you need to keep an eye on your weights and make sure that you don't get too close to the floor. And I just kind of wanted to point that out to you. So anyways, there you go. I pointed that out. Anyways, let me see if I can get the phone the camera here to readjust and to behave. It's not in a behaving mood. Behave, behave, behave. Come on, behave. Nope, it's not in a behaving mood. Come on, puppy. Behave. There we go. Now it's going to behave. Sorry about that. Anyways, okay, so now we are on the toe. And as the toe, what we're going to do for the toe is we are going to lift exactly the back half needles. So we're going to start at the 3 o'clock, and we're going to start lifting from the 3 o'clock. And we're going to lift exactly, this is a 54 cylinder, and so we're going to lift exactly the back half needle, so we'll only lift 27 needles. As I mentioned in my previous videos, some people do this with a crescent tool, some people do this with their fingers, but I don't do it with my fingers because this is pokey, and I don't like to be poked, and I don't do it with a crescent tool because I'm clumsy with a crescent tool. So I use my little needle tool here, and I lift these with my needle tool. Okay? Anyways, so I'm going to lift exactly 27 because this is a 54 cylinder. If you're using a 60 cylinder, then you'll lift 30, but whatever. So you're going to lift exactly the back half. just like that. Okay, make sure that all the butts are up, butts are up, butts are up, butts are up, and make sure all the latches are down. Always watch your latches. Always watch your latches. While you're watching your latches right now, so they don't get hung up in your yarn carrier. Okay. Anyway, so now I'm going to scooch up here if the camera will cooperate, and I'm going to show you up here on the yarn mast. If we can get up here to the yarn mast, I'm going to show you the yarn mast. Come on, camera, cooperate. Cooperate, cooperate. I'm going to show you the yarn mast again. One more. A little bit further. Okay. And the reason why I'm showing you the yarn mast is because the next thing that we need to do is we need to engage the heel spring. The heel spring is this little puppy up here that engages your break, that allows you to do your back and forth rows without your yarn getting sloppy. Do not put the Lycra in the heel spring, only put the yarn in the heel spring. Okay. Now we're going to come back down again. I just caught the camera right before it decided to flop again. The camera's just really not in a good mood today. Okay. So, we're going to try to get that to behave. Come on, camera, behave. Behave, camera. Behave. There it goes. Okay, now it's behaving. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to do, we've got our heel spring engaged, we've got our needles up. This is going to be very similar to doing the heel, but it's not identical. So we're going to work on doing decreases. We're going to start with doing decreases. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go forward, crank forward, like that. Okay. And then as a decrease, when you're doing the decreases, you lift on the same side as the yarn carrier, one needle at a time. One needle, lift, make sure that the yarn is all down and latches, that the yarn is down and the latches are all open. Okay, and then crank. That heel spring is what's keeping that yarn from being sloppy. Okay, and crank. Lift one needle on the same side as the yarn carrier. Make sure the yarn is all down, latches are all open. And crank. Okay, again, make sure, go ahead and lift, making sure that the latches are all down and latches are all open and yarn is all down, and crank. Now at some point in time here, you're going to notice that the reason why I keep emphasizing to make sure that the latches are all open and the yarn is all down is because you'll notice that it's not going to be doing that. And when it doesn't do that, you got to add heel weights. Yep, and this is when it didn't do it. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and let you see what I'm talking about. I'm going to zoom in. Zoom in. Look, that yarn is not all the way down. Do you see that? And look, those latches are not all the way open. I don't know if you can see that. Those latches. Can you see that? Those latches are not all the way open. Okay, what this means right now is that I need to add weights. Okay, I don't think my camera is going to cooperate enough to let me show you how to add weights from the top. So you might have to go to another one of my videos to see me adding weights from the top. So I'm going to do it from the front. You're going to have to watch me do it from the front on this video. Okay, so when I do, what I'm doing is I'm taking a heel weight. This is what a heel weight looks like. Come on, camera, where's that? There it is. Back it up, Charita. Okay, it's a fork across the top like this, and it's a heel weight. It's got a weight on it at the bottom like this, okay? And I'm going to come from the bottom underneath the cylinder, and I am going in between the cylinder and the knitting. And I'm bringing this up close to the, where the active needles are, and I am going between the cylinder and the knitting, and I am poking right into the knitting. And shoop! You see how that pulled those latches right down? Yep, it sure did. Okay, and then I'm going to do it again on this other side, in between the cylinder and the knitting. As high up as I can get it to go, and I'm going to poke it right into the knitting. Just like that. Okay, and I'm going to do it one more time here at the middle. The blue marks right here, these are marking my middle. Do it one more time right here at the middle. And these weights are going to help hold the knitting down and help keep it from riding up on the needles like that. Because when it rides up on the needles like that, it'll drop off the needles and all the knitting all falls apart. And we don't want that to happen, because that's like really ugly. Anyways, okay, so take note of where the yarn carrier is. The yarn carrier is on this side. We have to go back to that side to start lifting needles again. By the way, make sure you didn't bump anything, because you know what? Sometimes I bump stuff. So make sure you didn't bump anything when you did all that messing around. Okay, now back to lifting and cranking. Okay, I am going to lift and crank one needle at a time, back and forth until I get to this black mark on this side and this black mark on this side, and that's going to take me just a couple minutes. And so since it's kind of repetitive, you don't need to watch me being repetitive, so I'm going to put you on pause until I get to that point. I'll be right back. Okay, I am at the one needle before that mark that I was telling you about. Okay, I'm at one needle right before that mark. And you're going to notice that once again, my yarn is not entirely pulling down and my needle and my latches are not quite coming open all the way again. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to move my weights in closer. Okay, because they're kind of like far out there and they're no longer really being very helpful anymore. So we're going to go ahead and move those weights in closer. And if you notice that the weights are not being helpful anymore, even before you get to this point, because sometimes they're not, go ahead and move them. You can move them multiple times during the process. You don't have to only move them once. You can move them multiple times throughout the process. That's okay. It's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there we go. And again, you notice how my wrist was kind of riding over top of those needles there a little bit? There's a chance that I may have bumped something while I was doing that, so double check. Double check that you didn't actually accidentally bump something down, because it can happen. Seriously, it can happen. And then you got a mess. Okay. Anyways, okay, so now I've moved my weights, and I'm going to finish up the decreases here. I got just 2 decreases left, one on each side. Let's go ahead and finish those up. Ooh, I had that latch up a little bit. That was kind of scary. Okay. All right, now that I've done the decreases, now it's time to start doing increases. Now I do wrapped increases. And the wrapped increases are a little bit different. And the wrapped increases are done on the same side as the yarn carrier. And so what I do, and I'm going to scoot the camera in where you can see what I'm doing. If I can get the camera to behave. Camera, behave. Be good to me. Be good to me, camera. Okay. And we're going to focus in a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. Zoom in. Okay. So what I do is, first of all, I'm just going to lift the active yarn out of my way. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push down on the first time only on each side. I push down 2 needles. Only on the first time do I push down 2 needles. After that, I only push down 1. Now, what I really want to emphasize, and I emphasize this on both the heel and the heel tabs, but I'm going to say it again on doing the toe, is that I don't push this down all the way. I only push it down about 3/4 of the way. This is an active needle that's down all the way. This is a push down needle, and you'll notice that there's a height difference. The reason for this is because if I push this all the way down to this level right now, I take a very high chance and an almost guarantee that when that yarn carrier comes around, it's going to drop a stitch. And we don't want it to do that. Okay? But if I push it down this 3/4 of the way like this, it doesn't drop the stitch. So we only push it down 3/4 of the way. I want to show you that what I'm talking about is if you look at this little latch, I am pushing it down where the latch just lightly touches the knitting, okay? The latch lightly touches the knitting, just like that, okay? All right, now, what makes this a wrap stitch is I take the active yarn and I wrap it back behind the needles that I just pushed down. Bloop, just like that. Okay, and now I crank. And look at that, it did not drop the stitches. Aren't you so proud of it? Ta-da! Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Bring this back around. Bring the camera back around if it'll behave itself. Camera behave, camera behave, camera behave. Yes, I talk to inanimate objects. That's okay. I get away with it. Okay. All right, we're going to do the same thing over here on this side. Nope, camera didn't behave. Oh, it is driving me bonkers today. It is just in a mood. Thank you very much for your patience with me and my stupid, stupid camera. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, there we go. I've got it sitting back upright again. All right, now, we're going to do the same thing over here on this side. We are going to move the active yarn out of our way. We're going to push down those 2 needles. Again, we're just going to push them down part way, just like this, the 3/4 way, just like I showed you just a minute ago. We're going to take the active yarn and we're going to put it back behind those 2 needles, just like that. Making sure we get the lycra as well. There we go. All right, now we're going to crank. And ta-da! Magic happens. Okay, back on the other side. If the camera will behave its little self. Back on the other side. Okay, back on the other side over here. Behave, camera. We're only going to do 1 this time. Okay. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that I'm, like I just did with the other thing, I'm going to be going back and forth, and back and forth, doing just 1 needle at a time, just like this. Putting down 1 needle and wrapping that 1 needle from the left to the right. Here for just a minute, and that's going to take me just a few minutes. And so I'm going to put you on pause while I do that until I get almost to the end, and then I will be right back when I get almost to the end. And I'll show you how to finish this up. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm at 2 needles before the 3 o'clock mark right now. And so this needle is going to be done the same as I have been doing it, where I am going to lift the active yarn out of my way, and I'm going to push this needle down the 3/4 of the way. I'm going to go ahead and wrap behind it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crank around just as I have been on this needle. Okay. And the same thing over here on the 9 o'clock side. I'm going to pull the active yarn out of my way. I'm going to put down the needle 3/4 of the way. I'm going to wrap behind. and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crank back over to the 3 o'clock side. Now, I am on the last needle before the 3 and 9 o'clock. And it is actually the last needle, set of needles, pair of needles on the toe. So the last pair of needles on the toe, I need to finish up the toe. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put down the needle on the 3 o'clock side, and I'm going to wrap behind it, just like I have been. Make sure I didn't mess up those latches, because I did bump them. Okay, but I'm also going to go ahead and put down the needle on the 9 o'clock side, because I need to finish on the 9 o'clock side. Okay, so, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to crank on through. And the toe is finished. Okay, the toe itself is now finished, but we are not finished altogether. Okay, at this point, we still need to reattach the waist yarn, and we need to crank on off. So right now, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to determine, we need to leave enough of our project yarn on our project to be able to close the toe. So for me, I feel that I have enough project yarn left if I come up here to my mast, to my yarn mast. Okay, we're gonna come up here to my yarn mast again. Okay, I actually cut my project yarn here on my mast, on my yarn mast, right there. That's where I cut it at. I hope you could see that. Okay. The lycra can be cut there. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and I'll show you how to do the closing of the toe in another video. That is not going to be done in this video. But we are going to do the waist yarn and how to connect the waist yarn in order to get this off of the machine in this video. So, let's go ahead and now the next step is to take this yarn and bring this yarn very specifically. You have to bring it here in between the out of work needle and the in work needle. Bring this yarn in between those and then bring it down and put it inside the cylinder. Ta-da! Put that down inside there. Okay. Now you want to go back to your waist yarn and thread it back through your yarn mast. Whether you've got a slotted yarn mast or however it is you're going to thread through your yarn mast. Okay. Now it's very important that you bring your yarn carrier back in between the out of work needle and the in work needle. That's exactly where your yarn carrier needs to come. It's not to come any other location. It has to come exactly, stop right there. Okay, right there. And then thread your yarn carrier. Okay, now this is something I do different than other people. This next step is something I do different than other people. Okay, I weigh down, ta-da, I weigh down my project yarn and my new waist yarn. I weigh them down. I put a clip on them and I weigh them down, and I drop that weight inside my cylinder. And then I go ahead and I put my heel spring back on my I put my heel spring. You remember your heel spring? I put my heel spring back on my waist yarn. The reason I do that is because it makes it easier for me when I go to do my closing of my toe. It puts the same tension on my waist yarn as it does on my project yarn, so it makes it easier for me to find my stitches on my project yarn. They're not hidden inside my waist yarn, and so it's, again, it may just be a newbie thing, but it's a little trick that I do, and so it helps me. And so I put my waist yarn inside the heel spring, and I will run my first couple of rounds in the with the heel spring on. So anyways, okay, so now the next thing that you have to do at this point is you have to get your waist yarn going. But this is very important. You're not just going to start running with your waist yarn, okay? You want to go just to the front and stop. Go to the front of your cylinder and stop. And the reason you have to stop is because you have to get these back needles down, okay? So now we have to get our back needles down, and you have to be very careful that all your latches are open. So again, bring your back needles down, and again, only bring them down, as we have been doing with all of our bringing downs, only bring them down part way. And make sure that your latches are open. This is very important. You do not want any mistakes at this point in the game. And it's very important that you do this step correctly, because this step being done correctly is what allows you to close your toe correctly. If this step is not done correctly, then you cannot close your toe correctly. Okay, now you can gently go forward again. And yes, I emphasize the gently because if you go really fast, then you take a chance of dropping stitches. And you don't want to drop stitches. Dropping stitches at this point is tearfully bad. Okay, I go about 2 rows with the heel spring on. Okay, I've gone 2 rounds with the heel spring on. I take the heel spring off, I retension my yarn, and then I continue again. Okay. I go about probably about 12 or 15 rounds total. Here, probably about 15 rounds. I don't know that I always count it, to be honest with you. I don't know that I always count it. I go about 15 rounds or so. Here. You actually don't want to go too many rounds because it'll just become cumbersome and just like get in your way when you go to close your toe. But I go enough rounds to make sure that I'm, like secure. That I have secured my toe. I don't want my toe to fall apart. Okay, that's probably enough. Thereabouts. I didn't count them. Okay, now you're going to cut this. Choop! That's always the scary part. Okay, hold on to this for just a second, just enough so that it doesn't get hung up where it doesn't belong. Then you hold the bottom of your sock like this. And then you just keep on winding. And it all drops off. All by itself, just like that. Ta-da! Magic. And down it goes. And come back up, drop off your weight. Take all your weights off. And ta-da! You have a sock. Well, sort of. It's not exactly finished just yet. Because I still have to close the toe. And to have to wash it and dry it and do other things. But there it is.